Okay, who here hasn't been to space? Why? You better not throw up on my ship.
Approaching jump in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we talked last night a little about the X-Men, when we could possibly be seeing them in the MCU. We talked about the recent interview from Nate Moore. You know, that was a topic we did last night. The most recent interview from Nate Moore that he did with Screen Rant. I believe it was Screen Rant. I could be wrong on the interviewer. But the most recent interview that he did where he was discussing Bishop and Storm and then them entering in the MCU and all those things like that, which he's discussed before. He said it about 2 months ago in October. He talked about Storm and said that Storm has an interesting relationship with Wakanda in publishing. The other night in the most recent interview, he was saying how they are in the very early stages of the X-Men, but Storm and Bishop are definitely two exciting X-Men that he can't wait to get in here, etc., etc. So those are kind of some of the things that we've heard Nate Moore say about bringing in Professor X and the X-Men, etc. But we also talked about Giancarlo Esposito. Giancarlo talked, I want to say probably about 5 months ago now. I want to say that was about 5 months ago. Giancarlo was rumored to be Professor X. And this is not just like a rumor that just started 5 months ago. I want to say this kind of rumor goes back at least 3 years ago, maybe 2 to 3 years ago, of Giancarlo being brought into the MCU, being brought into the X-Men franchise, being either, you know, the rumor was either playing Magneto or Professor X and things like that. Now he has discussed these things, and it was a lot of us thought that he was going to be, that he, Denzel Washington, and a lot of others were going to be ushered onto the stage for D23, and that was going to be the announcement that was going to be made, that, okay, these are the X-Men are coming, here's some of the people that are going to be playing some of the notable X-Men that you know, etc., etc. That did not happen. Bombay, appreciate it. Who'd that come from? Thank you, Tank. Thank you for the subscription. He said, let's start this stream off with some appreciation for Planet Fanatics. Happy birthday, belated birthday. Thank you so much for that, Tank. And if you guys have not seen, Tank is over there. He's one of the hosts, for Spoiler Kings. So if you'd like to go over to Spoiler Kings, check them out. Actually, not if you would like. What you need to do is go over to Spoiler Kings. If you are not subscribed to them, subscribe to Spoiler Kings. They do great live streams, and they're trying to definitely boost, just like all of us, trying to boost subscriptions, trying to boost views, likes, and all that kind of stuff. So definitely go check Spoiler Kings out if you have not, and I appreciate you for the super chat, Tank, for sure. But then, as I said there, so we've got, you know, we were expecting a lot of them to come out during D23, but that ended up not happening. We did not see any of that during D23 like we wanted to see. Something else that kind of had happened was before D23, Giancarlo talked, I don't know if what convention this was at. This was at some kind of convention or con, but he addressed the rumors of him playing Professor X. So I'm going to go ahead and play just so everybody can remember what he said. Now, again, this was about 5 months ago. So everybody can remember what he said before we get into the article here. I'm going to let you guys remember what he said 5 months ago. And again, I can't remember. I don't know what con this was at or if it was even at a con, but this was posted on Twitter or on TikTok from Countdown City Geeks. So let's hear what he said then we'll jump into the article.
Work for Marvel yet. I've been in a room with them and talked to them, and to answer your question, I think what they do is on the lines of that mythological journey that Joe Campbell talked about, who happened to be a friend of George Lucas, that George Lucas put into his stories. They do the same thing. It is our dream and intention to save the world, our environment, to save the world from greedy corporations, to uplift the world and have leadership that thinks about us for the people, by the people, which means that those future leaders are in this room right now.
Amen.
Right? And so we want to inspire each other. We want to lift each other up, because what happens when that happens is then we actually do have a vision and a dream for a new world. Then we can actually start to reverse all the things that we have destroyed that will choke us if we don't change how we move through this universe. So, there's the talk of Magneto. There's the talk of Dr. Freeze.
Oh my.
There has been talk
Dr.
of
Freeze.
What else are they talking about over there?
Dr.
Doom.
Victor Von Doom.
Doom.
Yeah.
And there is Professor X.
Don't do this to us. Pick one.
Pick one. I'm gonna go for something that is a little bit different.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go and put it out in the universe that it is Professor X.
Okay. So I thought so, because if you guys remember when we talked about this the other night, excuse me, I couldn't remember if I couldn't remember if he said he wanted to play Professor X, or I couldn't remember if that was just a rumor that people were just saying. But he did say it. He said he wants to play Professor X. And when he says, I want to try something a little different, as we know, Giancarlo is arguably one of the best villains that we get when it comes to anytime he dons a role, the villainous role, he plays a hell of a villain in anything that he's in, whether it be video games, whether it be TV shows, movies, he's a hell of a villain. So I think when he says I want to try something different, I think that's what he's meaning. He's meaning I want to do something a little different outside of things I've done in the past, outside of things I'm already currently doing. Let me play this hero. Let me play Professor X. And even, I said this back 5 months ago. The speech he kind of just gave there, like the for the people, by the people, everything he was just saying there, that was so Professor X-esque that he was doing, like the whole conversation. Like, I felt like he's already prepping himself for the role. And I also don't think that he found out last year in 2022 that that he was in talks that Marvel was looking at to possibly be portraying Charles Xavier. I don't think that he found that out in 2022. I'm sure he's known about that for a while. Like I said, these rumors came out, I want to say about 2 to 3 years ago, that he was either going to be playing Magneto or Professor X. So seeing him talk about this and seeing him say there, I'm going to put it out there, Professor X, I that has kept with me all these months, that I'm pretty sure he's still going to be playing Professor X. Now, let Nate Moore tell it. They're in the early stages of seeing the X-Men into the MCU. So, but he did say that. But I'll go ahead and read here in the article what they said in the article. Now, of course, per usual, the Direct is always on top of things, and this is coming from the Direct, and they said Giancarlo Esposito, who became famous over the years for his role as Gus on Breaking Bad and Moff Gideon in Star Wars and the hit Star Wars show The Mandalorian, reiterated his love for Marvel, and he'd love to join the MCU's fun. This isn't the first time the actor's name has come up in Marvel Studios casting conversations. It was previously revealed that Esposito had almost been a part of Loki, possibly playing one of the titular character's variants. At the very least, Moff Gideon himself confirmed that he's been in rooms with Marvel Studios and talked with them. That's what he just said in that video. In a recent talk show appearance, the actor once again commented on his possible Marvel future while visiting The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Now, had I known that this was from The Tonight Show, I just would have pulled that video. We could have just listened to him talk. Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Moff Gideon on The Mandalorian, commented on possibly being cast in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The star noted how he loves what Marvel does, and he wants to play a good guy. See, such as Charles Xavier. That's what I mean. He wants to play a good guy. He wants to play a good guy because he's played all these villainous roles and he's been phenomenal in them. But it's kind of like the conversation we've had with Adam Driver. Now, again, as I said, I don't want Adam Driver to be Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards. That's not my first choice, if at all, even a choice. But when we heard maybe about 2-3 months ago that he was in talks of being Dr. Doom or Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, I had kind of said, and I even said it the most recent time we just talked about Adam Driver being Reed Richards. Again, not something I'm looking for, but if I'm Adam Driver and I'm in the room talking with Marvel, I'm kind of saying the same things that Giancarlo is saying. I just spent an entire trilogy covering my face. I want to be able to actually show my face and show things like that, show my acting chops, all things like that. And we all know that Adam Driver, albeit that we don't want him to, for most of us, don't want him to be Reed Richards. He's a phenomenal actor. He is a good actor, and that's something you cannot deny. So I think Adam Driver, that's kind of the same conversation there that, the same conversation akin to the Adam Driver conversation, that he's played so many villains, he wants to be a good guy. But this is what he had to say. He said, I love what Marvel does. I love that the fans can see me in this universe and are proposing not only one character, possibly Magneto, possibly DC's Mr. Freeze, and the biggest ask is Charles Xavier. But But look, I want to play a good guy, and Charles is smart. He's good, but I feel as if there may be some mileage with me and Marvel. I know I love what they do. I know I love creativity. So who knows what could happen? Keep putting it out there. Then he goes, fans' response to this was understandably positive. Twitter user Scott Socials noted that he'd be perfect as the new Charles Xavier. I think he'd be perfect as the new Charles Xavier. Nobody will beat Sir Patrick Stewart, but this will be damn close. And that's subjective. But then they go on to say, this is another tweet that says, Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X, Charles Xavier, bring it on, Kevin Feige. This is another one that says he certainly deserves to play a good guy, but I think we'd all be waiting for a heel turn from Professor X. Excuse me. So, like I said, Giancarlo definitely wants to be in the MCU. This is something that he's talked about several times. This is something that, again, had I known that was an interview from Jimmy Fallon, we would have just pulled that up. But he wants to be in the MCU. He wants to play the good guy. He wants to be Charles Xavier. I do believe he already is Charles Xavier. It's not a want. I believe it's already set in stone. He's just playing that werewolf game right now to where there's certain things he can and cannot say when he gets on these interviews. So I do agree that he is definitely more than likely Charles Xavier currently. But as Nate Moore has said, they're in the very, very early stages of things. But as we talked about last night, just because they're in the very early stages, Nate Moore went on to say in that same interview, that does not mean that, well, he didn't say, but the direct went on to say in that interview, that does not mean that we can't see some of these mutants or X-Men popping up before the mutant saga takes place in 2027, as is rumored. So if we start seeing some of these X-Men pop up, because it's not like, or mutants rather, I don't even want to say X-Men at the moment, but mutants, if we start seeing mutants pop up, because that was the language that the direct used, they said mutant. So we've already got Kamala Khan with the MCU making her a mutant. Now we've got Namor being the oldest mutant within the MCU right now, being the second mutant. So if we start seeing other mutants pop up, I wouldn't say that it's outside of the realm of things to see Giancarlo Esposito as Charles Xavier before the mutant saga in Phase 7. Again, these are just, I just don't see them harboring all of the X-Men until Phase 7, regardless of them being in the early stages of it. They're in the early stages of what the mutant saga will look like. I don't believe they're in the early stages of casting certain individuals as certain mainstay X-Men, some of those mainstay names that we know, like Charles Xavier. So I believe that he probably already is Charles Xavier. He knows that he's Charles Xavier. He's already said, I want to play a good guy. That's twice now he said that publicly. So, and twice now that he said Charles Xavier that he wants to play publicly. So again, I believe that he's already playing that character. And more news is going to come out as we get closer, because I think, just me, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I've not heard this from anywhere. I have no inside scoops or anything like that, but I think he may be a part of what's moving forward into Secret Wars. I really do. I'm not saying we're about to see him pop up early in Phase 5 or anything like that, but I do think that we're going to see some of these mutants, especially some of the household X-Men, those household name X-Men popping up before Secret Wars, and then moving on into the mutant saga with Phase 7. So, I don't know. Your mileage may vary, though. Question is for you guys. Let me know down below what you guys are thinking. Are you guys thinking that, Giancarlo should or could possibly show up before Secret Wars? Are you thinking, no, it's probably going to be after Secret Wars, moving into the mutant saga? Or are you thinking, like me, again, that he already knows he's playing Professor X? He's just waiting for the green light for him to be able to actually publicly say it. Then when we finally see him on screen, etc., etc. So you guys let me know down below in the comments what you guys are thinking.